everybody. Welcome back to the Soulganize Your Life podcast. I'm here today with Nikki Knepper. She is a clinical professional counselor and gerontologist and my high school POMS captain. So we have quite the life together. Nicole, what we do here on the podcast, though, is pretty straightforward. And I think it's funny. Neither one of us talked about ever becoming counselors. So it's funny that we're both in this space.
I didn't think I would really become anything. I was just doing stuff,
But anyway, what we do here on the podcast is really straightforward. It's to discuss how the outer circumstances of our life, which today the circumstances, caregiving, will just it'll stimulate our inner environment in very, very distinct ways. Two in particular. One is the psychological ego, which we're both very familiar with and what we do, but also through the divine relationship to all that is. And so why do I think it's important to know the difference? Well, this is where you're going to come in as our guest to walk us through what it's like to caregive from those two different perspectives, the inner conflict within ourselves that creates, and give us some ideas on how to integrate these two perspectives into one full, beautiful, extremely messy experience, right? So anyway, Nicole, please jump on in and finish introducing yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nikki Knepper. I like to be called Nikki, but you knew me more as Nicole, which is what people call me when I'm in trouble. And I was always in trouble.
You were.
I was. I really was. You're like, did we think we'd become this? No. Most likely become a stripper. I mean, that was pretty much how it was. So, I think that it's funny. One of our mutual POM friends, her mom said to me one time, I went to a show. It was one of her granddaughters who was in this play. And she goes, who knew that you'd become so successful? I was like, right?
Yeah. Earlier today, I was thinking about the Tom Hanks line in Forrest Gump, where they said life is a box of chocolates. You really don't know what you're going to get. And that's why it's awesome.
It is favorite movie, by the way. That's my favorite movie.
Is it? Oh, awesome. All right. So, let's jump in. You are a master, obviously, at caregiving as a gerontologist, but also in your own life. And I appreciate you being willing to talk about your own life circumstances. But before we get into being a caregiver, I would love to hear just couple minutes about what was it like to define yourself as a child, and from the psychological ego perspective, like how did you sort of truncate yourself down into this identity of someone who is just going to be a stripper?
I really didn't think I was, because I did try once and I didn't like it, but I think that when I was almost 3, I had a head injury, and my dad called it like cleaning my clock. It was basically my mom was going to play bridge, as women did in the 70s, right? Yeah. They used to play bridge with their friends.
Now we play mahjong.
I do not, and that has to do with my head injury, right? So I guess my brother and it was November of 72, and I turned 3 in February of 73. So I was just like at that kind of stage in life where you're just the most annoying toddler, but you're starting to get a little bit of understanding about everything. And my brother and I were actually very early readers, like sight readers and stuff like that. So I was in good shape when this happened, but so my mom left, and I went go back to say bye-bye one more time. You run back to the door because you're going to say bye-bye, bye-bye, mommy, bye-bye, mommy. And my dad was already in the process of shutting the door. So my head was in the door. Oh, yeah. And I had a skull fracture. So for a little kid, like with its head's basically made of jello, you know what I mean? But my skull fractured. Oh, so yeah. So you probably see me in all these pictures in high school. My head's tilted a lot, so it caused some issues for me, and I've dealt with them most of my life. But I think the biggest issue it caused for me as a brain injury is I am a spaz. You know what I mean? It is hard for me to focus. So that was always an issue when I was little, and I was the kid on a leash in the mall. I was the kid that, I ran away to, remember Gala West Bowling Alley?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I lived on Berry Drive, and I got mad at my mom one day, and I was wearing my freaking Sesame Street bikini. I'm like, I'm out. Went to the bowling alley, and my parents bowled there, and I'm like, told the bartender about it. Like, I can't believe how bad they are.
Wow.
I'm getting a Shirley Temple, and my parents are panicking, trying to find me, and they called home, and it was like, where's she gonna go? You know, like my brother's middle name was, where's your sister? Find your sister. It's something about your sister. So, early on, I was cared for a lot.
Okay.
Both my grandmas were a huge part of my life. My dad was only child. My mom had a sister, but her sister had 4 daughters, all older than me, who carried me around like a doobie baby. So I was basically everybody's, accessory pretty much, right?
So how did that inform your idea of caregiving itself, do you think, looking back now?
I think I'm so well cared for all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I think enthusiastically so, which I'm so grateful for. Like overnights with my grandma and rummaging through her jewelry. And so, early on, I became very aware of caregiving in general, because my parents were like working poor, that it was just the way it was, and family lived with family in the same house, in the same free flat and stuff like that. But when my grandpa died, I was 6, and he had emphysema. But what I remember the most about it was just the comfort that I had with it. We were used to sad stories. Like my paternal grandmother, who I was really close to, her dad died when she was 11, and that's 1921. There's no Social Security. You know what I mean? There's no help. Her mom was a washerwoman, so they moved into their kitchen, and the house was rented out to boarders.
Wow.
I know. It was just such a different time, but because I was so close to my grandparents, I got to hear all the stories. You know what I mean? Of like what it was like during that time. And my mom's mom and dad, well, my mom's mom came from Sweden, and a bunch of brothers and sisters. So we were always just a little bit around the darkness. I don't think I saw it as darkness, though. I saw it, well, this is life.
Well, it's interesting that you say the words "used to sad stories," because as someone who has a glimpse into your childhood, really your teenage years, you presented yourself, I think the ego in you presented the opposite, right? Presented this very outgoing, very happy, always joking, always, getting us into some kind of adventure. It's interesting to me to to see the ego defense mechanism, right? Like,
but I wasn't sad about these stories. I don't think I was sad.
Yeah.
Like,
You're comfortable. You're comfortable.
People die. And you think about 100 years ago, people were born at home. They died at home. Death wasn't removed from us. And so growing up, it wasn't removed from me. Not at all. My neighbor up the street was 4. He died of cancer.
Oh,
my parents didn't hide that from me. My dad taught him to swear. He said, kids need to know how to say shit before they die. I mean, my dad was, when he was like 5, he was in a parking lot in the city, and his best friend, who was his best friend his whole life, their brother got hit by a car. They saw this.
Oh,
I know. And what the hell were these little kids doing walking around the city? Because that's what they did back then.
Yeah.
It was just a different time. And so I think there's a poverty mentality that's so different than where we were raised in Naperville, which is, so you saw one thing, but like at home, I knew that my parents were struggling financially. I knew that, not struggling the way you would think, but for Naperville, most certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were young and you were around these, human tragedies, did you become aware, or were you aware of your soul at that point? Or what would you call it? Your spirit, your divine connection to?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, hated church, got dragged to church, hated being in the clothes. And I would be like, so I can change in the car on the way to Grandma Sally's, but I can't wear this to church. Like, I'm such a literal person that I just thought, like, why does God care what I'm wearing? I never, like, religion. I tried to make religion resonate because I really wanted to, because I thought it was a great conduit. And I think it was a great conduit to the way my spirituality is today. But I wouldn't say that religion is an area where I feel comfortable. It's a little bit more limited to me instead of expansive. And I prefer kind of an expansive way. But I think
Yeah.
what you're asking about the way that it informed me is that I was around it as a normal thing. That's
Mhm.
like saying the leaves turn in the fall. Yeah,
Yeah.
every fall, and people die. And that's
Yeah.
just the way it is. Be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, right after my grandpa died, turned 7, my aunt got cancer, my mom's only sister, and she got breast cancer. And subsequently, over the next couple of years, her husband got brain cancer. And the two of them died within 2 months of each other, leaving 4 daughters.
Wow.
Yes. And it was just back and forth, back and forth. So I was always around it. Right
Yeah.
after that, my grandpa, my paternal grandpa, developed Guillain-Barré, and my grandma was his full-time caregiver. So I was changing chucks and rolling people and doing a Hoyer lift. Like,
Okay.
so all of this was just normal.
Okay. So not only did you describe being cared for, carried around as a youngster, but then when you got old enough, you were able to literally partake in caregiving, not as a scary thing, but as, oh, this is just what we do. This is life. Life is teaching
Yep.
me. I'm not letting religion teach me. I'm letting my relationship to life and people teach me about this.
Actually, religion was very damaging to me, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
has stuff to do with caregiving. Recently, one of my cousins, the one closest in age to me, she sent me a text. She was on her way somewhere, and I think it was her dad's funeral. She taught me the sign language alphabet, in the back of the car. And in the funeral home, they had these really thick towels in the bathroom. And I think I was 11, and I was just handing them out to everybody going, these are very thick rags for very heavy tears, because everyone was just like sobbing because it's such a fucking tragedy. You
Yeah.
have one person dying and then another person dying. And the Uncle Bob who died first, he was my godfather. And again, he was close to my dad. So this was just a really, to me, it was, this is life. This is what we deal with. Yes,
Yeah.
it was sad. Yes, it was tragic. But I think the biggest error that was made at that point really was just, it made me afraid that I was going to lose my parents. Because you know how little kids always say, oh, what if you and dad both died? And the parents go,
Yeah.
oh, that would never happen.
Yeah.
Voila.
Yeah.
Ask the cousins, ask Chris, Sue, Nancy, and Sherry if that would ever happen. And they will say, it certainly will. And it can happen in a summer of your life. They left a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, 14-year-old, and 12-year-old.
Wow. So the fear that you said, now I'm recognizing sort of the egoic side or the human side of me is starting to develop fear about my parents. How did that inform you in your childhood moving forward, becoming who you were, developing into a young adult? Like, what did that fear do to you?
It's such a good question. So when I was 14, I don't know if you've ever seen those memes that say, if you weren't drunk and dying in a field in high school, did you even grow up in the 80s?
The 1970s kids. Yeah.
Yes. So my freshman year in high school, that happened to a couple of my friends. And one of them ended up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. And that was the same night my grandpa died.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we all knew that this girl was in the hospital. And then we got a call that my grandpa died. And our hall bathroom kind of shared a wall with the master bathroom in my parents' bathroom. And I heard my dad sobbing. Like he literally sobbing that night, right?
Wow.
And I remember that night just praying and just being like, God, take care of him. Like, I think when you're a kid, you just think especially dads. I don't know. I had a good dad, and I just thought he hung the moon. He was so great with me and really tolerated my hyperactivity, probably better than anybody, like understood it. And I remember thinking, I always struggled with the literal interpretation of religion. And, like got in trouble at confirmation camp. Of course, I brought booze and I fought for memorizing the books of the Bible because I'm like, there's an index and I'm dyslexic. Like, fuck you guys, right? Like, why does this have to be a fight to have God love me? And I think
great question. Wow.
So I was like, I'm out, and
put that on a t-shirt, Nicole.
No, can you do that for me? Because that is I do not have. Thanks.
Yeah. Why do I have to fight for God to love me? That's the ego right there in a nutshell. Right. And I think you saying the fear of your parents at that moment when you're hearing your dad sob, That sounds like to me one of the first times you turned to God that you've expressed so far. You said, God, take care. So is that where you became aware of your relationship to things outside of just humans?
That's such a good question. If I use hindsight, I can go, yes, but no, I think I was always really aware of it. We used to camp. We always went camping. We had this pop-up camper, and my dad was a Boy Scout. Nature was like huge,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I was always interested in the stars, and we had a telescope, and I just,
Mm. Mm.
when I was little, I used to say, I want to be a neurosurgeon or an Olympic gymnast. I mean, like, they're very similar. So you can see where, right? You can see where that was totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to be a neurosurgeon is because, what happened to me and then what happened to my uncle. And also, too,
Mm.
I could never figure out my brain.
Mm.
Things were always harder for me. They take longer. So, like, I have a kind of a crappy working memory and processing speed, but it's still in the high average to, category,
Yeah.
whereas like my other stuff is superior. So I'm a smart person and I get information, but I process it slower. And you remember in school when you're reading and you say, what does this word mean? And they say, follow the context clues. Again,
Mm.
fuck your context clues. Another we're dyslexic. You know what I mean? Like, we can't even remember what we just read, and the words are flying all over the page. And so my context was what I experienced and what I saw, just a very kinesthetic learner. And I
Yeah.
think that's where caregiving came in. My dad was the
Yeah.
only child. He cared well for his parents. And when I did go to God for things, God did not make sense to me for a really long time. You know
Hmm.
who made God made sense to me? You know who absolutely changed that for me is my brother.
Really?
Yeah, he has his master's in divinity, and he was a pastor for a while, and I think he was pretty disillusioned with what the church was. But he said, "Okay, imagine it this way, right? You're standing on a driveway in California, and I'm standing on a driveway in New York, and God's on the moon, right? And if somebody's driving from me to you, God sees it all at once, the beginning and the
Mm-hmm.
end. That's God
Mm-hmm.
looking down. So God just kind of integrates it. And I was like,
Yeah.
thank you for giving me a visual reference. And he's like, and by the way, God is not a man and a flowing beard in the clouds. It's
Right.
not what it is. I
Right.
mean,
It's a relationship. Mm-hmm.
yes. And he, like, my dad also explained something to me that was just so funny, because I was like, okay, once I realized, do not covet your neighbor's ox and ass meant don't be jealous of their livestock. I was like, why would I be jealous of their livestock? I'm not interested in that. And then
I live in Naperville. We have a home. Yeah.
my dad's like, no, 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 no. The thing is, this is about looking at what other people have and
Yeah.
being like, well, you can get that. You can do that. You do the work,
Yeah.
So I just feel like there was so much good in the way that my dad was able to represent religion to me. And he chose his own religion because his dad was Catholic, his mom was Protestant. My dad, my grandpa's family said, oh, you're marrying a Protestant, you're out. And my dad chose his religion when he
Yeah.
was younger. My mom was raised Swedish Covenant, and it was real strict and yucky, and she just didn't relate to it very much. So they landed on Lutheran and liked it.
Yeah. So I
And
love that you said about your brother, you used
Mhm.
the word integrate. He helped me integrate it, which is the point of the podcast,
Yeah.
right? Is so it might be a good time for us to move to caregiving around this because
Yep.
you're now an adult, right? And you're informed enough from human experience,
Mhm.
being around sadness, integrating it as being part of what happens, feeling like I'm, a spaz, but people are caregiving for me, and now I'm turning around and caregiving for other people,
Yeah.
and then the literal idea of God didn't make sense, but when your brother helped you say or see like that, which is true, God sees
I
the relationship. Right, God
Yes.
sees the relationship. And so how did that inform you as an adult who became not only an informal caregiver, but also a professional one? Like, how did that inform your current life?
Well, I mean, it was interesting because I started off at Illinois State, and I obviously, with all my issues, I just really couldn't handle it. So I came home and I went to Concordia University in River Forest, and that's where I met my now ex-husband. But he was religious, Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. I was not. This is a pretty, strict university. And I mean, I did not relate at all to the dogma, if you will, and their views on certain things, but I needed to get educated. And one of the coolest things about I'm just gonna call him Eric because I hate calling him my ex-husband because I loved him then and I love him now. So my brother was I would say my first explainer, my brother and my dad and my mom, and my grandparents, I just had so much support. I mean, shout out to Mrs. Hill too, my tutor, forever. I had so much support growing up. And then, and then Eric was such a support, I mean, sometimes I think I didn't break up with him because he had a printer. He had a job printer. And I didn't have to go to the library, and he would look at my papers and edit them, and he would make me sandwiches. I never had a euro till I was with this man. And I was like, what has my life been?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Just introducing me to the world. So I feel like my husband expanded the world for me. And sometimes he forced me into it, which I did not like. And then I did. And I was always very grateful for it.
Yeah.
And with my son, I think that's when I really became just different. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you have children. When a person grows in your body and then you it's coming out of your body and you're just that just happened.
Yeah.
This is so crazy. I remember it was, he was born in March of 2000 and it was really warm the day he was born. So it was one of those days where everything's lovely and celebrated. And why is it 70 degrees in March? It was crazy, right? And then just a few days later, one night, I was laying on the family room floor. And of course, with a brand new baby, you're worried you're going to kill it or it's going to die. And I'm trying to nurse and it's pouring rain. I'm lying on the family room floor, boobing in his drink this, And I was thinking, I have to care for this baby. No matter what, this is my thing. Everything. If he doesn't sleep, I don't sleep. If I don't eat, he doesn't eat. It was I knew it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also noticed that I knew it different than my husband. I noticed the difference in the way we cared for our son. And so Eric was very comfortable with religion, but he also grew up with his mom having a daycare in the home. So he had baby 101. I mean, and I was like, what do I do with this baby? It's so crazy. You know what I mean? And I just felt I just prayed. I was just like, okay. You know what I mean? Just there's this, in church, you hear Kyrie. It's it's a prayer. It's the Kyrie, mercy, right? And I said that, God, have mercy. Just have mercy on me. Here, give me grace because I was so tired. I was so tired. I had mastitis already. I was starting and I was just I need to be able to show up for this baby.
Yeah.
I was just feeling the darkness,
Yeah. It's so interesting how life has informed your caregiving on these different paths and of people, right? Where you first experience caregiving, then you help, then you assist, right? And then you have someone expand your life through somewhat caring, for you while you're going to school. And then the baby is the first time you're like, this is all on me. And you did informally reach out to your divine relationship. You said, God, give me mercy because I don't know what I'm doing.
I think that's formal. It's between me and God.
Yeah.
I understand. That's as formal as you get. I was like, I need your mercy.
Yeah. But so much of your life has been, at least the way you're describing it has been around what am I in relationship to caring for another or being cared for? And so it makes sense to me that this is what you chose to do professionally, even.
It it's such an accident though, because my undergrad is
Yeah.
exercise science and fitness management.
Yeah. Which
I
is important. I mean, it's part of caregiving your own body, right?
I
That you
couldn't
live
imagine
in.
sitting still. I couldn't imagine
Mhm.
sitting still for a living. And, before I went to grad school, my husband was working still at the university and he's like, you need to go to school. You need to go to school. And I thought about nursing, but
Mm.
because of, numbers and transposing stuff and, you know, I truly am a slower processor. Like my son, my 26-year-old son has taught me more math in my life than I ever learned. It's amazing. He's another one of my expanders, you
Yeah.
know, but like, yeah, I think that psychology, it was interesting and people always interested me because I remember sitting at church and watching people like recite, and like they recite the Apostles' Creed, you know what I mean? And I'd be like, do you people even know what the fuck you're saying? Like, blah, 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 amen. Like, no, everyone just wants to get out of there, and then you see people like giving kids dirty looks because they're squawking in church. And I'm like, well, that's very godly. I'm just trying to eat a Starlight Mint here
Yeah.
and
You
not go
know,
crazy.
the other word you just said, which I think might be how you've been able to handle such extraordinary caregiving circumstances, is the word expander. What you're saying is the people you ended up caring for in your own life were initially someone who expanded your life for you. Which,
Always.
okay, so to me, like, to help the audience through their own caregiving, right? Like someone's going to search caregiving. What you just said to me is really, really, like, I've never thought about this before. One of the reasons why you probably so humbly and beautifully took on a many caregiving roles that other people might have a difficult time with, maybe it was because of the memory and the way you so fondly looked at these people as like, these people expanded my life. These people gave me something past my head injury, right? That happened. And so like that, is there some part of you that felt like you wanted to give back to them in a way, or does it just feel so natural? Like it was just what you were going to do?
Oh,
Like
like
what?
I didn't think about it. When I listen like to your podcasts and different episodes and stuff, and people have all these like broad and deep kind of early reflections and connection, I'm like, yeah, I didn't connect that. I didn't get that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, even recently, I've had aha moments that are just like, are you kidding me? Like,
Right.
what even just happened? Yeah, like I don't know. Like, there's so many running jokes in my family. Like, I was like, the Pentagon, you know what I mean? I thought that was a military term because I didn't
Yeah.
pay attention and I didn't even get through geometry and I didn't remember half the shit I learned anyway. And then I like saw a picture of the Pentagon and I went, oh my God, Pentagon. And my dad
Yeah.
was like, it's the building is shaped like the shape. And he's like, yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I thought it was a military term. I mean, I had a moment. It was not. It was probably. It was a while ago now. But like, I never used to eat cheese. Okay, like I didn't eat cheese, sensory texture stuff. So eating cream cheese was like a big deal to me, but only on a bagel and only a certain smear and texture because I'm
Yeah.
not eating clumps and weird stuff. So one day I was like, oh, I'm gonna have bagel and cream cheese, and we were out of bagels. But I was really in the mood for cream cheese, and I was like, oh, I can put cream cheese on something else.
And it was the first time you thought about that.
Literally, I was in my 40s when this happened. I was like, I don't have to just put it on a bagel. There are other delivery systems for this food.
Yeah. So going back to caregiving, like
I was linear. I was literal. I didn't overthink it. I didn't think
okay.
I was well cared for. I'm going to care for someone else.
Got you.
It's natural. I can stay present. I can stay in the moment. And watching it, when you watch things your whole life, because I do, I have to watch and I pay attention. Like, don't tell me, show me. But kindergartners have show and tell because none of them gives a shit what anyone is saying. They just want to see your stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, one of your superpowers that you're unaware of was while you were caregiving for several different people in very difficult circumstances, was this ability to observe sort of like non-judgmentally and be present. I mean, is again, for someone who might be listening, what would be your advice around a difficult caregiving situation? And what resources would you have them go find?
Well, I mean, relationships make caregiving complicated,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. And there's different types of caregiving. There's the physical act of caregiving and there's the emotional act of caregiving.
Yeah.
Physical caregiving can be really hard, but my 70-something-year-old grandma and I managed to, pull my grandpa up and roll things. And you know what I mean? Like, one of the things that she did that I think was so awesome is that she involves me in it in such an interesting way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, do you want to do this? I would just wander right in and be part of it. There's no shame if you got a urinal. I mean, I didn't even think that much of that. You know what I mean? It wasn't.
So part of it for you is you're saying if you could give advice, right, is to involve generations of people in the process so they're not afraid of doing it.
No, I would say don't overthink it.
Okay.
Humans, they have to eat, sleep, and poop, and this is just a part of life.
Okay.
We're so far removed from those things, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everyone's hiding it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like we're hiding our humanity. And when you have a baby and you're away from your baby for a short period of time and you get back, did they sleep? Did they eat? Did they poop? That's all you know.
Yeah.
Right? You take an output. And then the sleep part is like where your brain's cleaning itself out and doing whatever it needs to do to like not go freaking crazy because there's so much in the world. So it's, it's important. And, I remember I've never been a long sleeper because I'm like restless. I'm always so restless because of the nerve stuff. But I learned that you're getting up a lot, that you're not sitting still. And I don't like sitting still. So I think I'm very well suited to whatever tasks were happening. Can you go get this? Can you do this? Yes. Help with this. Abso-freaking-lutely. And then there's the sitting and listening. Like what does somebody need when they can't really communicate it or they're communicating it poorly? They're frustrated and they're in pain. You just have to be patient because of course they're in pain and it's not personal.
Yeah. So when you talk to clients now about this, which you've had such, both professional and, personal experience around, what I'm hearing you say, kind of the first step is try not to make things so complicated.
Simple.
It's simple.
Yes.
How do you help them then, decompress from their emotional experience of it?
Well, I mean, I can't. I think it depends on what your emotional experience is and how you see it, how you're processing information.
Yeah.
Like, this as a therapist, some people, they're thinking and feeling, but they don't know what they're thinking. The feeling hits them so hard, they don't know what the thought is behind it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that, for me, I have to filter in all that data and then the feeling usually comes later.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It wasn't until I got older, like you said, how did you become aware of like your ego and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, am I supposed to be upset about this? Am I supposed to be anxious about this?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
A lot of that social coaching that, people get when they're in middle school and high school that you're like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed I could die. I was like, oh, cool. Moving on. You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, good. Thank you for helping me. I was really struggling with this, or I didn't understand that. And so I always saw that what was coming in is helpful information.
So when someone might be overwhelmed in their emotions of the experience, well, I guess what you're saying is you were asking the opposite question, right? Like, oh, how should I feel about this? And someone who's overwhelmed with their feelings maybe just needs to be more matter of fact, is like, how should I think about this?
If I think
death is coming or the relationship is ending or whatever. And they can just kind of flip into that other wonderful thing that God gave us, which is our ability to discern.
And it's the discernment, right? Because physical stuff is physical stuff. You wouldn't have an ego without your body, right?
Yeah,
That's your ego is the mirror. It's the way the mirror impacts you. So from the second you're born, after they find out you have 10 fingers and toes and you're not like a mutant baby that's dying, it's who do they look like? What is their name? And are they a good baby or a bad baby? So a good baby doesn't cry a lot.
Yeah.
Well, how else are they supposed to communicate? That's all they can freaking do.
Right.
Do they say, what? Oh, the baby never sleeps. Yeah, they do. Don't use always and never about the baby. We're already getting extremes, right? The baby is this, the baby is that. And people are projecting everything. And babies are hope, right? It's hope for something different. But man, the second I saw both my kids biting their nails, I'm like, well, damn. Biology is very, very, very strong. It's acceptance. What you see physically is true. These are human bodies. They do things. They do things for a reason.
Yeah.
It's survival.
And it shuts down and does that process for a reason. I was blessed to be at both my parents' deaths, watch them, their bodies shut down. And the hospice person said, you'll watch each system start to shut down separately. Right. And the last system, they always say, is the lungs, right? Where you hear the gurgling. And I mean, and there was something about like, oh, our body comes online, especially as a female, right? Your last system comes on, your menstrual cycle comes on much later when you're aware of it. But when you're a baby, you don't know that. And then watching someone pass, I found it profoundly beautiful because I'm like, oh, the body knows how to die. It shuts down. If it has the opportunity, right, to do it by itself, it shuts down. And to me, it was a beautiful thing. And to your point, it was more literal. Like that's what made it beautiful. That's the divine relationship that I saw happening. I didn't try to stop anything. I didn't ask for things to be different. To your point, like, so maybe one of the reasons why we're scared of death or caregiving is because we are so emotional instead of literal. And I kind of really appreciate now wrapping this up with your perspective of like your whole life felt very literal to you, but you have a way of caring for people in a depth that most people who get carried away with their emotions and can't, right? I can't see that. I can't be around that. I can't, right? Like there's some beautiful thing I think you have to teach about caregiving in general to people. And I know we're not going to cover it in this podcast, but I do hope people listen. I do hope people find you. Like, Nikki, where do you want people to find you?
Don't find me. My God. Leave me alone.
You're going to be a great support. You're going to be a great support system for a lot of people.
I actually don't want to be found. I mean, I don't know. I've been talking with a friend about this, about maybe writing a little bit about it. But like, you said something in a podcast of yours, it was earlier about, whoa, the market's flooded, with podcasts. Why would I do this? And then your answer is because I want to. Yes. Because one person will listen or something. Yeah. And I think, you were talking about your parents' deaths. And, the one night that I wasn't there is my dad died. The one night I wasn't there. And my mom, when she kept a part of him warm for me, she rubbed his arm until I got there.
Oh my gosh. That is beautiful.
So that I could touch him. She said, it's warm here. She didn't want him to be cold when I got there. I know. And I was so close to my dad, right? And it was just, I felt something go. It was like a sparkly, just a freedom, you know what I mean? Like finally fucking free, right? And my brother and I both had a weird experience that week. We both kind of saw him, which is a whole nother story. But when my mom died, because her illness was so prolonged and she was on hospice for 2.5 years, and my brother and I had our hands on her, and her heart stopped beating like under my hand. Mm-hmm. You say the body knows how to die. Yes. But it was when my brother and I were laughing because I was like, you were going to watch a Hallmark movie with me. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, yeah, I think you are. And you're going to like it. And I don't even understand why this is a fight. Like, why do I have to fight you to get you to love? Yeah. You know what I mean? To love this pretend joy, even though we're in the middle of sadness. And then my mom died. And, I told them right away, and they came in and they said, do you want to spend time with the body? And I said, nope. Yeah. I love her in all the ways, like the systems were shutting down and, losing her. Like she fought. We want to survive. You know what I mean? And I think that maybe is the biggest takeaway about caregiving is I want to survive. I do. But I've always been in survival mode because it is a little bit harder for me to thrive in the world the way other people do because of my, so caring for people and being interactive with people, that keeps me awake. It keeps me focused. It tells me what to focus on instead of all these what ifs or things that you try to control. Like, the secret to, I think, surviving the caregiving experience without feeling traumatized by it and for it is just understanding that you're not in control of anything. You are a partner. You are a witness to something that is very unique and special. And some people don't think it's beautiful because it doesn't feel very beautiful, when somebody is shaking their pants and looking at you or hallucinating or punching you in the face. I mean, I've cared for my husband. I've cared for my father. I've cared for my mother. They're very different experiences. I've cared for children. I feel like time doesn't really almost exist in a way. Like, it's all happened for me and to me at the same time. Isn't that weird?
Well, and I think that is the relationship that we talked about before we started the podcast. And I think it's a good thing to end on, is how your brother described the God to you, right? In relationship, right? He's seeing everything all at once. And when you can access that level of who you are beyond the ego, the soul, it will feel like everything happened to me, like that movie said, everywhere all at once. I can leave this planet a better person because I had all those experiences. And I think if I were a client looking for someone to help me, and I am going to tell them, you are at Girl Wellness, by the way.
Leave me alone.
No, I'm just saying, like, somebody helping me, like, dilute something down into a literal physical experience, and the objective witnessing that you're doing, I think, is how somebody would get through the most difficult things that you've done. And so I really appreciate you. We are going to put some of her book recommendations in the notes.
Yay.
Because she also is your prolific reader, I think, of this type of material.
Everything. But the one thing I want if your listeners have any questions about caregiving right now, I think their biggest question, just to end, is does Medicare cover this? And the answer is no. Medicare doesn't cover any of it. Wow. But who covers it? This is what covers you. The conversations, the relation, the resources. Just don't isolate.
Yep.
That's my biggest error is isolating and getting lost in it. I can't say I've done it beautifully, but that's the time I lost. You know what I mean? That's the time that I lost, but the resources will help you, but the books are important, but the people are more important.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for being here, Nikki.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us.